has the situation gotten that even now in tourist areas in Mexico, areas that are critically dependent on foreigners coming and spending money for to buttress the Mexican economy, the drug cartel violence is spreading there as well. The State Department has issued new travel warnings and advisories over increasingly large parts of Mexico. And that violence, that drug violence, is already spilling across our border with Mexico, particularly in Arizona and Texas, where there are broad areas that it's simply not safe to go at night, and in some cases even during the day. And since the main channels for illegal drug distribution in this country are urban gangs, you can easily see the potential for the drug violence in Mexico, just like on a conveyor belt, to come into this country and affect us all over the United States, not just in those states bordering Mexico. Now, this serious problem has become increasingly obvious. Even Secretary of State Clinton, a longtime opponent of the Second Amendment, said back in September of last year that when she looked at Mexico, she saw Colombia 20 or 25 years ago as the drug cartels there from Cali and Medellin were beginning to grow and threaten the stability of the government of Colombia. And her words of warning, of course, were even more important to us because Mexico is on our border. At least Colombia was in South America. The next day, President Obama said, "You can't compare what is happening in Mexico to what happened in Colombia." That's a direct quote. Now, I've watched a lot of presidents and secretaries of state in the course of my career. I don't recall anything even approximating that kind of complete contradiction of something that a Secretary of State had said. But that was our president describing this growing danger. When they do talk about what's happening in Mexico, our government, our White House, follows the Mexican line by saying that the real problem of drug-related violence in Mexico is caused by guns that have come illegally across the U.S.-Mexican border. Now, this is something that is music to the ears of the gun control advocates in this country because they can say, see, actually it's our lack of gun controls, our lack of enforcement that's the real cause of the problem. So, stiffer gun controls in the United States will solve the problem of drug violence in Mexico and prevent it from coming here. Now, this is absolutely incorrect simply as a matter of fact. There are a lot of guns in Mexico in the hands of the drug cartels. Absolutely. Where do they come from? No doubt some of them come from the United States. A lot of things in the world come from the United States. But the bulk of those guns in the hands of the drug cartels probably came from police arsenals in Mexico or arsenals of the Mexican army, where corrupt police officials and corrupt army officials sold them to the drug cartel's agents. Or they were procured in the vast international weapons market that the cartels obviously have access to. The idea that what's going on in Mexico is somehow our fault because of lax gun control laws here is exactly the kind of subterfuge that the Obama administration would like to carry forward in the near future to get stronger gun control laws here. And it will provide a foundation for their argument why the United States will have to enter into, in short order, the United Nations negotiated arms trade treaty. They've now put a draft of that treaty out for discussion in New York. It's something that the gun control advocates in this country have long wanted us to subscribe to. This particular draft is a lot less onerous than it could be. It just raises the question whether they want to try and hurry this draft through to completion to try and get it considered by the Senate before the next election, or whether they're putting it out as a placeholder for negotiation to be concluded after President Obama wins his next term in office, because that's what they're looking for.